Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. Thank you for joining me from wherever you are, in your car, on your laptop, at work, killing some time. I really appreciate it, Broncos country. You've taken to the podcast on YouTube. It means a lot. Keep downloading, keep subscribing, tell your friends. Again, we have 2 podcasts a week year round, essentially, but obviously during the season. And this is a big game. This is a big week. It is the first biggest game of the season. Broncos v. Ravens. Can the Broncos show they are for real against Baltimore, a team I picked before the season to win the Super Bowl? A team that, when they play their best football, look like the best team in the NFL. But they're also streaky. Not Will Ferrell and old school streaky, but they're streaky. They will lose games that they shouldn't against the Raiders, against the Browns. But can the Broncos prove they're for real? Can Bo Nix on a national stage as the main game on CBS with the first crew, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo? I mean, if you wanted to hear Jim Nantz the last few years, you had to watch the Masters, Broncos country. On this stage, can Bo deliver? And isn't it finally time to right an awful wrong? The Blue Ribbon Committee voted in the 9 semifinalists for the coaches who are now eligible for the Hall of Fame, and Mike Shanahan is on that list. They vote again on November 9th. They recommend one coach moving forward. Usually then it's a rubber stamp that coach would go to the Hall of Fame. My word, isn't it time to correct that injustice and put Mike Shanahan where he rightly belongs, in Canton? Can the Broncos show they're for real? Bo on the big stage. And we'll talk a little bit about why Mike Shanahan and his election to the Hall of Fame is long overdue. That's all coming up on the podcast. We'll catch you on the other side. Have you been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggett Injury Law a call. Their motto with us, it's personal. They make it a personal experience. That's how Darby Hoggett is. I've known Darby for years. We became good friends traveling the country, watching our boys play baseball. I coached his son in baseball and also in hoops. Darby's a great man. I became his good friend. Many of his clients become his good friends. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. So again, if you've been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work, give Darby's team a call. That number, 1-833-HOGGATT. That's 1-833-HOGGATT. Or visit the website at hoggettlaw.com. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BettingOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch games as they happen. The largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL to entertainment, and even political props. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Well, welcome into a Friday pod. I am Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Broncos v. Ravens. This one is going to be delicious, folks. It's on the road, so it's a difficult game. That goes without saying. Baltimore is one of the tougher places to play. And it is a team that is now a little hungrier than we would prefer when you look at their recent loss to the Cleveland Browns. When you look at the fact that this is a team that is too good in their mind to be losing back-to-back games to the Browns and the Broncos when you already have on the schedule a loss to the Raiders. So this is going to be a hungry Ravens team. But the Broncos have an opportunity here to go in as a 9 to 9.5 point dog, depending on the shop you use. Maybe use BetOnline. That is the largest spread this week in the NFL. I talked to some bookies about that, and they said it's a number of things. One, the Broncos have had a Charmin soft schedule. Let's call it what it is. Let's be real here. They have absolutely devoured the feeble NFC South, the Broncos. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Carolina. And New Orleans and Carolina felt like the JV team. One felt like JV and the other felt like a home coming, however you want to put it. But you play the schedule in front of you. But that's part of the reason for that 9.5-point spread. You have played an easy schedule. The teams you have beaten, well, the Jets finally won last night, breaking their 5-game losing streak. The teams you have beaten have almost lost double the games they've won this season. But again, you play who's in front of you. So the soft schedule is part of it. That there's no way around that. That's part of this 9.5 to 9-point spread. Also, the fact that the Broncos have not impressed people nationally in terms of their offense outside of basically just devouring bad teams. Against good teams, they've struggled offensively. At Seattle, against Pittsburgh, and certainly when you look at the Chargers game and then the first half of that game in particular, that creates pause. And, the final thing is the Ravens are coming off a horrible loss to the Browns, a game they had won until Jameis Winston went off at the end of that game. But I mean, he should have had 3 picks. Again, shoulda, coulda, woulda. I hate playing that game, but one of them to Kyle Hamilton was right in his arms. It looked like he was throwing to the safety to the Ravens, and he drops it. So the Ravens are angry. They're hungry. The Broncos have played a soft schedule, and when they played good teams offensively, they haven't exactly lit it up. But again, can they show they're for real? They absolutely can. And this is where it becomes a statement game for the defense and the team in general, but the defense. The Broncos have the number 3 ranked defense in the league. They're one of the best teams against the pass and scoring points right around 15, 16 a game. They've been one of the best teams in third down and in red zone touchdown percent. All the metrics you use in terms of pressures, sacks, getting after the quarterback, third down percentage, all those things that measure a good defense, the Broncos check. They check those boxes. And now it comes this week against the Ravens. And they have what I found interesting this week is when asked about it, players from Zach Allen to Nick Bonitto, I want to hear a quick bite from Bonitto here in a second, but they talk about this in terms of not a challenge, but an opportunity. And I know people see that and they roll their eyes and really, what does it matter? Well, the last 8 years, the Broncos have been a catfish team. You think they're going to turn the corner. You think it's real. You're going to fall in love with them. And then you look up and, someone with one big tooth and a mohawk is staring across. You're like, hey, that doesn't look like the picture from the profile. That doesn't look like it. And that's what they've been. This is a team that has a chance. And those teams would always talk about the challenge. It was the hope is a strategy. If everything goes right, if we play a perfect game. Well, these Broncos have won 5 of 6. They've won 3 straight on the road. So they don't have to hope. They've done it. Again, have they done it against really good teams? They have not. But Tampa Bay at the time, that was a big win. That's their most impressive win of the season. And again, now it looks worse because Tampa Bay's hurt and they're around 500. But that was a huge win at the time. They beat the Jets. At the time, that looked impressive, even though it was an ugly game. You have the Jets, you have Tampa Bay, you have New Orleans. You take care of business. Part of no longer being a bad team is beating bad teams. But this defense has a chance to make a statement. Can they stop Lamar Jackson? Can they make him one-dimensional? In talking to Vance Joseph this week, the coordinator for the Broncos, he made it clear, not even hiding it, that his preference is to stop the run first and force them to pass. Because of you got basically a NASCAR with mud flaps with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Can you make them semi-one-dimensional? In the past, if you've done that, you could beat Lamar Jackson. This year feels different because he is off to an incredible start. He's become a better passer. That's saying something for a guy who's a 2-time MVP. But he is completing right at 67%. That's over his career average. Right at 2,000. He's almost at 2,100 yards. 8.9 yards per attempt. 17 touchdowns, 2 picks. Hard for him to play any better in the passing game. But as crazy as it sounds, you have a better chance of beating them if you force them to beat you through the air. But, and there's a caveat here, and I know people say, what does it matter? Lamar Jackson has not practiced, the past 2 days. Wednesday and Thursday did not practice. We'll know more Friday, so keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on social media. I expect him to play, But they do have a Thursday division game against Cincinnati on the backside. And I believe, my conspiracy theory hat is, if they had beaten the Browns, Jackson, if he's this banged up, might have set out this game and then picked it back up against the Bengals on Thursday. Because if he's this banged up, that's hard to ask a guy to play, those 2 games in essentially 5-6 days. But he hasn't practiced. He's listed on the injury report with a back and a knee issue. Some people that cover the team have speculated that it's a groin issue. It's an interesting thing, because if he's compromised, can that help the Broncos stop the run game? If he's dealing with knee pain, if he's dealing with a leg issue, will that make him less apt to run, more reluctant to run? And that could really help the Broncos. I mean, the Ravens' backup quarterback's Josh Johnson. Great guy. He was here a couple years ago. He is like 37 years old. He's been in the league forever. He's barely played. It's one of the weirdest career paths ever. I mean, if he is playing instead of Jackson, that is a huge downgrade for the Ravens. I mean, there's just no way around it. But the plan as it stands now, it appears, Broncos trying to slow them first on the run with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and then trusting those crazy cover corners in Pat Surtain, Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan. Can they then, along with Brandon Jones and Devin Key, the safety, can they man up and control a very good passing game? Deontay Johnson, they just acquired from the Panthers. We'll see how much he's involved. He's going to practice a couple times, but it still sounds like he's going to play. You add him to Zay Flowers. Isaiah Likely is legit. Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews. The one thing that concerns me is how the Broncos are going to deal with the tight end, because that has not been a strength of a Vance Joseph defense. It has not been a strength of a Broncos defense, frankly, since Super Bowl 50. So can they, if you slow the run, can they contain Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews? I think that could end up swinging the game, because if Jackson's compromised, he has to throw more, he will lean on those 2 tight ends. But this is a statement game for the defense. It's a statement game for the Broncos. For years, they've had games like this. In 2017, they fell on their face against the Giants. And a couple of years later, they lose a Monday nighter against Cleveland. They played at San Francisco that same season and got killed when they had a chance to make a playoff run. And who could forget the Colts game with Russell Wilson in one of the worst games and viewing experiences of Broncos country of any of our lifetimes. And then, of course, last year, Christmas Eve, Patriots, a chance to win, then go beat the Raiders and maybe even make the playoffs, but certainly have a winning season, and the Broncos fall on their face. This is a game, even if you don't win, I hate moral victories, but if you are able to stand toe-to-toe without flinching, dukes up, show that you are for real. You lose 27-24, that's still something you can build on going into Kansas City. But you cannot beat this team 20-13, 17-13. You're not going to win a rock fight with the Ravens. But the Broncos like the idea of being the underdog. They feel confident after winning 3 straight road games, but they understand what is ahead of them. So let's hear from, we've got Nick Bonitto, we've got Courtland Sutton, we've got Sean Payton, all talking about this game with the Ravens, a chance for the Broncos in the CBS main game of the week with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo to show the nation they are for real.
On a big stage like that, obviously we don't look for validation for anybody, but just as far as defensively, this is a time to show everybody, who we are and why we want to be those defenses.
Yeah, because I think your 3rd overall defense, their 1st overall offense, is it kind of known in here? That's like that's the heavyweight fight.
Our coaches let us know that for sure, so we're definitely looking forward to the challenge.
Last thing, when you face Lamar and Henry, 2 of the most unique guys at their position, what is the challenge of that, especially given Lamar's skill set as a running quarterback? No, Bo does it, but yeah. Lamar's been doing it for a bit now.
Mm-hmm. Just knowing that we can't let them guys get going. Derek, we kind of got to get him to, slow his feet down, just make him think a little bit, not give him just a running lane to go through, because once he gets started, it's going to be hard to bring that guy down. Even with Lamar, just making sure that we attacking him, keep it contained on things, and making sure it's not just easy access for him on runs.
Yeah, it seems like.
So anytime the quarterback's a run threat, you kind of get a man back offensively. It's not 10 versus 11. And then when you have a real good running back, that makes it real difficult. And so these guys have been rushing it extremely well, throwing it extremely well, scoring. And then I would say from a complementary football standpoint, they're defending the run well. They've gotten teams in a number of the games they've played this year into a one-dimensional game, and that's with scoring. So this is one of those teams, obviously, that we've seen in the postseason and playing late in the postseason for a reason. John does a great job. He has for a number of years.
They're number one in the league in total offense. You're number 3 in total defense. Is this almost like a something's got to give matchup, and you feel your defense is up to the challenge?
Yeah, look, it's still a team game. Each aspect of it's important. If we're not on the field long, there's more stress on the defense, and vice versa. And so, yeah, I mean, look, that's one matchup that you're discussing, and obviously, it starts, but it just doesn't end with their running game. They're throwing the ball very well down the field, and their red zone numbers are at the top of the league. So there's a lot more than just that one element, but of course.
Yeah, man, it's a great opportunity. We've aligned ourselves to be in a spot to where we can make this game a big game. I'm sure that most people didn't have us in the spot that we're in right now, going into the beginning of the season. But we've been playing some pretty good games and putting some games together, and now we have an opportunity to go in and face a team that everybody feels is going to be in the AFC Championship. So this is a great opportunity for us to go out and showcase what we know about our team, what we know about the work that we've been putting in, and shoot. It's just up on us, got to go out there and execute how we know how to execute.
Yeah, listen, I like the mindset and talking to the players this week. And again, this is Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Again, thank you for joining the pod. We just heard from Nick Bonitto, who has had sacks in 6 consecutive games, Coach Sean Payton, and then Courtland Sutton at the end there. I like the mindset, talking to the players. They feel confident in the game plan this week. And I know people say, well, they always do. No, they don't. But this week, they seem to like what they've got in store for Jackson and Henry. Doesn't mean they're going to be able to stop them. But when you have a defense that has played as well as the Broncos defense, you have a defense that is, they're building on something each week. And yes, it's been against some crappy opponents. That is not their fault, though. You can only play the schedule in front of you. So, it's going to be a complimentary game. You're going to have to play great in special teams in the margins. Put yourself in position to win a field goal game late. But if you're the Broncos, you got to think in terms of 27 points. And that brings us to our next topic, the offense. This is the stage, the biggest stage yet for Bo Nix. Now, if you want to say against the Saints on Thursday night, I will disagree with you. That's on Amazon. That is a different animal than the main CBS game in that Eastern window. It's a 1 o'clock time back east, 11 a.m. here. But that's the prime audience, the first football audience. You got the first crew from CBS. That is like their big game outside of, a Cowboys game in an afternoon slot. This is the big game of the week in terms of the competitive nature of it, in terms of, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry being a sexy sell for TV. Can Bo Nix and this offense take that next step? Nix could hardly play any better than he did against Carolina last week, with nearly 300 yards passing, a rushing touchdown. He was throwing guys open. He was throwing guys on time. It's like on target, on time, letting them catch the ball to get runs out, to get yards after the catch. That's something we haven't seen this season. Can he carry over that momentum? He's not going to play as well as he can against the Panthers. If he did, that would be one of the great all-time rookie performances by a Bronco quarterback ever. But can he deliver? Can he put out 180 yards, couple touchdowns, no turnovers, and rush for 60? You can win with that kind of game. That's that Jalen Hurts game I've talked about, that with this defense, if you protect the football Because Sean Payton knows if they have receivers turning the ball over twice like they did against Carolina, they're going to lose. You have to win the turnover battle. But it's not even winning it. It's almost like you can't turn the ball over. You want the Ravens to turn it over a couple times and you to be at 0, or them 2 and you 1 at the most. You're not going to win on the road turning the ball over. You're not going to win kicking field goals. But Bo Nix is coming off a week where he was named the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Month. He has 12 total touchdowns now. That's more than Jaden Daniels. That's more than Caleb Williams. Part of that is the schedule. Understand that. Part of it is he's better than some people think because he is a dual threat quarterback. And it's fascinating with Bo. He admitted he didn't run for the Broncos. He didn't run the 40 at the combine. I would guess he runs around a 4.5 if I had to guess. 40, 4.5, 4.6. I mean, he's one of those guys too that is faster on game day than he is when he's just running a timed workout. Some guys, when they put the pads on, they slow down. Bo Nix is football fast when you watch him. But he's a better runner. Sean Payton's admitted this the last few weeks. Better runner than anticipated. That cannot be lost here. And he's going to have to beat ultimately, he's going to have to beat the Ravens with his arm. The Ravens have the number 1 ranked rush defense. It's a weird stat because teams get behind against them. When they win, they clobber teams, and so they're forced to pass. They don't run. They have the fewest rushing attempts against them. That doesn't mean they haven't been good when they've been run on, but they have the fewest rushing attempts. But their secondary is leaking oil. It's been leaking oil all year. Zach Orr, their new coordinator with Mike McDonald taking over in Seattle, it's been a bumpy road. There's no way around it. So can Bo Nix take the game plan like they had at Tampa, take the fight to Tampa Bay like he did? Can he take that fight to Baltimore? Can he take that fight to Baltimore? Can they show some vertical prowess in the passing game, whether it's with Troy Franklin, Sutton, Mims? We still have yet to see the big catch from Mims, which could be the difference in a game like this. But they're going to have to push the ball downfield. And when they upset Tampa Bay, they went out. Remember that first drive, Bo Nix 4 for 4, 70 yards, shocked Tampa Bay with how aggressive they were early in the passing game. Can they do something similar here? Because again, if you play conservative against Baltimore, you're going to lose. You're going to lose wherever you play, but you're definitely going to lose at Baltimore. They're a team you have to believe you're going to have to score 24, 27 points to have a chance to beat them. You're not beating this team 10-9 like you beat the Jets. It's not happening. They're just too good offensively, with all due respect to the Broncos defense. So can Bo Nix on this stage put his name on the into the national conversation? It's already been conceded, even by me at some points, that Jaden Daniels is going to win Rookie of the Year. The fact that he has that Hail Mary now on his resume, it's going to be very difficult for anyone, whether it's Bo Nix or Caleb Williams, to be pass him. The last thing I want is injuries. I want them to all play and see who's the best. But it's like the Heisman race. Bo Nix can put himself in that conversation. If he goes to Baltimore, plays efficient football, protects the football, takes chances, but takes care of the ball, and they upset Baltimore as a 9.5 point dog, now you got something on your resume that's unique. But as I say that, remember, Lamar Jackson, I expect to play. And do you know what Lamar Jackson's record is against rookie quarterbacks? Close your ears, Broncos country. He's 8-0. He kills the NFC. I think he's like 23-1 against the NFC in his career. And he's 8-0 against rookie quarterbacks. That's why I'm saying if Bo can make a statement on this stage, now for me, you call it and say Broncos have their franchise quarterback moving forward. Typically, I would say I would wait until the following November. So the November Thanksgiving of a rookie quarterback, or of a quarterback's second year, to start making a final decision. Is this the guy we can move forward with, or do we have to move on? If Bo Nix beats the Ravens, it's unequivocal. Call the fight. He is your guy. He's your franchise quarterback. Even if he goes out and loses a close game, you will walk away from that feeling two things. One, we got our guy. And two, we feel like we could go and give Kansas City its best shot. That's going to be a tough game at Kansas City. That game you can probably win in a lower scoring game. Typically, games between division opponents because of familiarity are a little more lower scoring because they just know each other and their tendencies so well. So maybe you can go there and sneak one out. I think for me to be a playoff team, if you win 2 of the next 3, you're going to seal it. You will be a playoff team. If you can win 2 of the next 3 between Baltimore, Kansas City, and then Atlanta at home, you're going to be in the playoffs. If you lose these next 2, you still have a path to the playoffs. You'd have to finish 5-2, but you'd have a path. You'd have a path with games against, again, the Browns, the Colts, the Raiders, Atlanta at home. Atlanta at home becomes a huge swing game for the season then if you lose these next 2. I believe the Broncos have it. They stay healthy. They have a real chance to win 2 of the next 3. But this is an opportunity for Bo on the big stage to make a huge statement to the country, to the nation, that the Broncos are for real, that he's for real, and more importantly, for the Broncos country here locally, is that he's the guy. He's the franchise quarterback. And again, if he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. I tell you, I give you until next November to decide this. But if he goes out and beats Lamar Jackson, you got something, folks. I mean, let's call it what it is. You have something. And I want to finish this with a little history lesson. You know, it's been so long since the Broncos have been good. Super Bowl 50. And who coached Super Bowl 50? That was Gary Kubiak. Who was his mentor? Mike Shanahan. And that is the subject for this rant, if you will. The Blue Ribbon Subcommittee, whatever committee, blue, red, white, they voted on Thursday they named the 9 semifinalist coaches for consideration for the Hall of Fame. So there's 9 coaches left. 2 former Broncos make it through, Mike Shanahan, Dan Reeves. I love Dan Reeves. I covered a little bit of Dan Reeves' career here. And hopefully he gets in the Hall of Fame. But my focus today is Mike Shanahan with 2 Super Bowl wins, cuts in front of the line on Dan Reeves. Sorry, apologize for those. And I know there's some out there, huge Dan Reeves fans. Dan could not win a Super Bowl here. And if he had, then for me, it's a no-brainer. He's a Hall of Famer. He's more of a compiler, where Shanahan is top 20 all-time wins. He's a guy that did it on the biggest stage, and he won 2 Super Bowls. And that's where I want to start this argument to understand why Shanahan should be in the Hall of Fame. Remember, for the Hall of Fame for years was a sore spot for Broncos country. They had forever to get someone in. Floyd Little kind of broke through. Since then, we've seen Pat Bowlen, John Elway, Terrell Davis, Steve Atwater, Shannon Sharp, Gary Zimmerman, Champ Bailey, John Lynch. Who do you think coached almost all those guys except Little? Ted Lasso? No, it was Mike Shanahan. And yet somehow Bill Cowher and Tony Dungy are in the Hall of Fame and Shanahan's not. He's sitting out here waiting like he's in Group C on Southwest Airlines, waiting to get on board to the Hall of Fame. And it makes no sense. The number that his case centers on is 2. He won back-to-back Super Bowl titles, and I covered him in 1997 and 98. There are 7 coaches in the history of the NFL who've pulled this off. Vince Lombardi, Don Shula, Chuck Noll, Jimmy Johnson, Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, and, of course, Shanahan. The first 4 are in Canton. Some of the greatest coaches of all time. Lombardi, Shula, Noll. Johnson's not one of the greatest of all time, but certainly his run with the Cowboys, it was unbelievable. It was like the short, great run. Those first 4 reside in Canton. Belichick and Reid are going to be in the second they're eligible. I mean, they're both in the conversation as greatest coach of all time, honestly. And here's Shanahan out here waiting. Like somehow he's become an anomaly. And I don't understand it. This group that he's competing against right now, so there's 9 in this group. It's Mike Holmgren, Shanahan, Bill Arnsparger, Tom Coughlin, Chuck Knox, Dan Reeves, Marty Schottenheimer, George Seifert, and Clark Shaughnessy. Great coaches, no doubt. But as someone who votes for the Hall of Fame for baseball, it's not the Hall of very good. It is the Hall of great, the Hall of the 2-3 percentile type. So some of these coaches, they were great coaches, but are they Hall of Fame? That's a different delineation. And I've been hearing in some conversations for like a year now that the next coach in was going to be Mike Holmgren. Great coach. But he only won a single Super Bowl with the Packers. And then the next year, he comes back as the biggest favorite since the Jets in Super Bowl III when they when the Colts got upset by the Jets. he comes back and loses to who? Shanahan. Listen, and here's the other thing I want you to know about Shanahan. He wasn't a compiler. Only 7 Hall of Fame coaches have won more games than Shanahan. And he set a record for wins during a 3-year period, and I covered these 3 years. 46-10 in the NFL over 3 years. 96, 97, 98. One of the greatest runs of all time in the NFL. They should have won 3 straight Super Bowls. That's how good they were in 96. They got upset by Jacksonville. They didn't do it. In many ways, that fueled their run to win those back-to-back games. They were nearly undefeated in that second year in 98. But as Mark Schlereth told me yesterday, 65% of the league is still running his scheme. Think of the innovations. Think of the coaching tree. Look at his coaching tree. Some of them, the coaching tree like Belichick is a branch. Shanahan, the guys who've worked underneath him include Sean McVay, won a Super Bowl. Matt LaFleur at the Packers has been amazing. Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins. His son Kyle, who's been to 2 Super Bowls. And Gary Kubiak, who won Super Bowl 50. And you're going to say, well, what did he do that was innovative? Well, the way they changed the run scheme. Howard Griffith, I talked to him yesterday, and he talked about how he implemented a variation of the I and offset I formation, creating a power run game you hadn't seen in that zone blocking scheme. 14 offenses for Shanahan ranked in the top 5 during his career as a coach and a coordinator. Coordinator right before with San Francisco before he took over the head job in Denver. All-time great offenses. And then the final thing you should know, he has a 22-17 record against coaches in the Hall of Fame. And he knocked out 3 of them in the playoffs. Bill Cowher, Bill Parcells, and Shula. So what are we waiting for? I can't even take the Canton seriously if he's not in it. If you want to say it's because he didn't do much without Elway, he made the playoffs 4 times, including with Jake Plummer in an AFC championship game and Robert Griffin and Washington. It didn't end great in Washington, but it's hard to win without a great quarterback. Look at Bill Belichick. Look at a lot of great coaches. It's hard to win if you don't have a guy. Shanahan, in terms of all-time wins, in terms of playoff wins, in terms of his record against Hall of Fame coaches, in terms of his innovation, in terms of his coaching tree, his legacy in that way, the footprint he's left, there is no reason he shouldn't be the guy on November 19th who gets recommended to go to the Hall of Fame, which should be a rubber stamp. So keep an eye on that, Broncos country. November 19th, hopefully the madness ends and Mike Shanahan gets recommended as the one coach this year to go into the Hall of Fame. Broncos country, I hope you enjoyed this. I could not do this pod if it weren't for Bet Online. Of course, my man from A1, Day One, that's Darby Hoggett, and Mile High Sports Big A behind the window there. He's working through me. I had technical difficulties today. I got my crazy pet bulldog doing stuff where he's keeping me distracted, but Big A's never distracted, always on point. It is a huge week. I can't wait to talk to you on Monday after Broncos v. Ravens. Can the Broncos show they're for real? Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness, that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.